This week on Dance of Joy, we learn about showerless islands, the iconic disaster flicks of the 1970s, and how Bo Jackson didn't know Bo Diddley. All that and more as we watch Season 3, Episode 17 of our favorite 80s hit sitcom, Perfect Strangers. Hello, listener, and welcome to Dance of Joy, a Perfect Strangers rewatch podcast. My name is Imran. Joining me, my sister, Sophia. What's up, Sophia?
Hey, Imran. I'm happy to be here, but I'm not going to lie. I'm pretty sleepy. I was up all night because my sink was dripping.
Oh, no.
This drip all night, and I couldn't sleep. It was driving me crazy. I YouTubed it. I tried to fix it. It's not really working. I'm going to have to call a plumber.
I told you, you don't mess with waterworks in your house, and that's a very appropriate problem you have, sister. As we have reached Season 3, Episode 17 of Perfect Strangers, this episode titled Pipe Dreams.
Pipe Dreams? That makes me think a lot of different things.
Yes, it does. What do you think about?
Pipe dreams is like an idiom that people say. I think it means like a hope or a plan that's just out of reach, that's not really unattainable, like me and my goal weight.
That's a pipe dream? Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, that's true. That's one use of the word pipe dream. And it's also
my goal height, however, is a lot more attainable.
You'll get to your goal height.
I'm going to get to 8'6". I will reach the top shelf at the supermarket.
I had to figure out where this phrase came from because it sent me into a Google search. But the phrase also, it's an allusion to dreams experienced by smokers of opium pipes. Back in the day, there was a lot of opiate usage by...
Oh, so it's like a opium trip.
Yeah.
A pipe dream, yeah.
Well, you'll notice Lewis Carroll references in Alice in Wonderland. Sherlock Holmes visits an opium den in one of his stories.
Okay.
So it was in art and literature, but apparently, it turns out, I found out the first mentioned reference of pipe dream doesn't come from that, but comes from America. The earliest references of this phrase can be found coming from Chicago, in fact.
What?
Yes, from the Chicago Daily Tribune newspaper, which then became the Chicago Tribune.
Still exists?
From 1890.
Holy moly.
There is the first use of the word pipe dreams. It was this sentence: aerial navigation has been regarded as a pipe dream for a good many years. Wow, that's how old that line is.
This is so brilliant because this is so relevant to this episode on like 3 different levels.
Right.
First of all, an unattainable or fanciful hope or plan. Check. We'll get into that.
That's Larry's whole
And then a
shtick.
Chicago origin for the first uttering or printing of this phrase. Very, very cool. Okay, we learn things on this show. We are not only silly, but also educational. If you were to open the TV guide in March 1988, early March, you would have seen this description for this episode. Larry's in hot water for presuming that the manly way to impress Jennifer is to fix the plumbing in her apartment by himself.
Oh, that should work.
Rather than call a plumber.
Yeah, this should go great.
And we're going to talk about this later, but this strikes me as another one of those common sitcom premises that showed up all over the place through the decades.
It's all about the execution, and we will see the execution.
We don't need to call a plumber. We don't need instructions. We're just going to do it ourselves. And hilarity ensues every time.
This episode, of course, starring Bronson Pinchot as Balky, Mark Linn-Baker as Larry, and Rebecca Arthur as Marianne, Melanie Wilson, Jennifer Lyons. And originally, like you mentioned, Sophia, this episode first aired March 4th, 1988. Now, this episode is notable for many, many reasons already. First of all, this is like a lot of people's favorite episode ever.
It is up there. Yes.
It also, I'm gonna mention this now because I'm gonna forget if I don't mention it. Remember, I talked about the CNN's history of the sitcom series. So I was watching it and I was waiting. I was like, are they gonna do Perfect Strangers? They got to do Perfect Strangers. And the episode that's about freaks, geeks, and aliens. So they talk about sitcoms about outsiders and aliens. Right in the middle of the episode is featured this episode, Pipe Dreams, and you have Mark Linn-Baker and Bronson Pinchot commenting on it present day.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah, I was really happy that they did. They put in Perfect Strangers. They put in this episode. So I think this is a very famous episode for the show. And it marks the move to Friday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central.
Baby.
Well, not quite yet. This is on Friday. It was on Wednesdays. TGIF officially launches in the fall of 1989. We are at the end of the 1987-88 season here. So on this lineup on this Friday, it was Perfect Strangers, Full House, Mr. Belvedere, and then in a TV show, something called The Thorns that didn't last long and would be replaced next season by Just the 10 of Us, a spinoff of Growing Pains.
These were all great shows, except I don't remember The Thorns, but the other shows you just mentioned were all classics that we watched a lot of as kids.
Yes, I can't wait till we get into the TGIF era.
We're getting there. We're getting there. We're almost done with season 3. Let's get into this very iconic, classic favorite episode, Act 1. Act 1, we open in the living room of Balky and Larry's apartment, and Balky is vacuuming the couch with this like hose attachment thing. And so we get into some physical comedy right away just to open the episode. Larry walks out from the bedroom and he goes up to Balky, and he's like in a jacket with a collared shirt as he often is, and he's holding up 2 different ties, both kind of like maroon and pink, and he's asks Balky which tie goes better with the shirt. He's holding them up in front of him. Balky points with the vacuum hose to one of them, which of course just sucks up the tie. He's like, that one. He goes, that one's nice. There's like a pause and a laugh. They do the great thing with like silence. Larry's just still holding up the 2 ties, and then Balky's about to say, well, the other one's nice too, and pointing at it with the vacuum hose again, but Larry pulls it away.
He's like, no.
That's like a quick little first laugh,
quick
right at the
opening
top.
Physical bit. But look, there's no time for vacuuming right now because there's a knock at the door. Who is it? It's Jennifer and Marianne, and they're here to deliver the plot of the episode.
Okay, that's convenient.
Yes, right. It's perfect timing. They are in full flight attendant uniforms as they got assigned last-minute flights to Paris, and they need a favor from the cousins. And Larry goes, name it. He's smug right off the bat.
He's smug. He's talking over Balky. He's like, whatever you need, I'm here for you.
Here's all Jennifer needs. Jennifer asks him if he can let the plumber in tomorrow. She says he's going to put on the new shower head that we bought. And Balky is going to answer again, and Larry interrupts again. He goes, hey, consider it done, in his machoist voice. And Jennifer gives Balky a piece of paper going, here's his phone number. Please, you have to call him. You have to confirm a time. And then before Balky can say another word, Larry snatches the paper out of Balky's hands so quickly it gives him a paper cut.
That is so funny to me. I didn't see that the first time I watched it, and the second time I watched it, he like flinches, and then there's a paper cut.
When you do the little thing and go,
yeah,
you're like, ow,
ow.
Yeah, and then he puts it in his mouth, and Larry, all smug, goes, don't worry, I'll handle everything. And the girls say thank you, and they have to go catch a cab to the airport.
And they leave, and as soon as they're gone, Larry tells Balky, I'll call the plumber, and he walks to the telephone. You can hear him punching in the, and Balky goes back to the vacuum cleaner. And you can hear off to the side Larry like punching in the buttons on the phone. And then he says, hello, is this Pipe Dreams Plumbing? There's that reference again.
The title. It's in the name of the company.
Which is like a very cute name for a plumbing shop, I think. I would, if I had a plumbing shop, I would go with Pipe Dreams. Then we hear Larry say that he's calling on behalf of Jennifer Lyons, and he says, I'd like to cancel the appointment.
What? Wait a minute.
And Balky looks at Larry with exactly that thought. What? Wait a minute. And we hear Larry say, no, I'm going to be doing it myself. And then he goes, no, you can't invite all your friends over to watch. The plumber knows exactly what's going to happen when the customers cancel their appointments.
You got to imagine he's heard this all the time. This happens a lot.
And Larry hangs up the phone and he goes, jerk. And then Balky says, cousin, I'm sure I'm wrong, but I could have sworn that I heard you call and cancel the plumber. And Larry's like, yep, I did. And Balky goes, I see.
No, it's very quick. He's like, I did. And Balky's like, I see. He's like, well, I'm sure I'm wrong, but I could have sworn I heard you tell the plumber you are going to put on the shower head yourself. Larry goes, I am. But he goes, I see. Well, in that case, he goes, may I invite my friends over to watch? Because when it comes to plumbing, you don't know Bo Diddley, he tells Larry. And now
Bo
this is a
Diddley,
reference.
and here we have our first reference of the episode.
This is a good kind of reference that's early, that changes later after this show. It's kind of interesting when you look back at it.
This show changed the reference?
No, something else. Nike changed the reference.
Oh,
okay. Do you know anything about Bo Diddley or this reference?
I think the saying is supposed to be you don't know diddly, like
Correct.
diddly squat.
Right. You don't know diddly, you don't know anything.
Where did the squat come from? Or where did it go? Diddly squat. Diddly squat means like
Diddly
nothing,
squat.
so you don't know
Nada.
nothing. Okay.
Silch. Zero. So that's the reference. Bo Diddley, he's a famous blues guitarist and singer who influenced lots of musicians like back in the day, like Buddy Holly, Elvis, the Beatles, the Rolling Stones. Everybody loved Bo Diddley. So he combined Bo Diddley, the musician, with You Don't Know Diddley. Now,
Diddly squat.
in the very near future of their timeline, 1990, Nike comes up with this Bo Jackson campaign, this ad campaign. Do you remember that?
Who's Bo Jackson?
So, I'm not a sports guy. I'm going to try to explain this the best I can. At the time, Bo Jackson was this guy who was killing it in multiple sports. He was good at football and baseball, and like everything he tried, he was really good. So he could do anything. So the ad campaign had Bo and playing every sport, and the tagline was Bo, you don't know diddly. And it was said by Bo Diddley. Actual Bo Diddley was in the commercial.
This is, okay, I'm a little confused. I feel like I need to diagram this.
Yeah, it's like a reference that goes in itself.
But why would Bo Diddley tell Bo Jackson he doesn't know diddly if Bo Jackson was good at all the sports? Like, what was that tagline about?
The ad is actually...
I need to watch the commercial.
No, you got to watch the commercial because he's trying sports and then he tries playing the guitar. Like, he thinks he's good at everything.
That's the missing piece.
He meets him on stage and Bo Diddley tells him, Bo, you don't know diddly. So that's what it reminded me of when he said, but this hasn't happened yet. In
Bo
March
Jackson
of
was like the Donald Glover of sports in the early 1990s.
He could apparently do it all. I remember that.
Okay. So that was a nice little ride. I liked that.
Wasn't that crazy?
That was very interesting.
Back in the episode, we have some fantastic Larry splaining to Balky what women want. This is great.
Larry splaining and like gross machismo / misogyny.
Yeah. A little bit.
/ ickiness.
It's the
like
80s.
Which made me think, what is Jennifer even doing?
Listen, in the 80s, this was like mainstream comedy topics. This is how it was in movies and TV. And he explains to Balky that this has nothing to do with plumbing. He says it's a cry for help.
Ugh.
And Balky's like, I could have sworn she asked you to call a plumber.
Balky's the feminist.
Yes, Balky is a feminist. Larry's like, those were her words, but her eyes were saying, help me.
Ugh.
And Balky goes, no, I think her eyes were saying, call a plumber. And then, of course, Larry has to go, Balky.
And
then I love just how he says this delivery. He goes,
ew.
It's what women do.
Ew.
They pretend to be helpless so their man can come to the rescue. When Jennifer gets back and finds out that her man has handled it, I'll be a hero, and she'll want to thank me. And then they do that thing where Balky's like, and he's like, and Balky's like, and then they're both like, and then they stop, and Balky goes, are we still talking about plumbing?
Yeah. It's one of those scenes that they do often that typically ends with, what are we talking about?
Yes,
what are we talking about?
Yes.
But also, this, I don't know. This is the one part of this episode that would not fly today on TV or
and then
in
just
in
how he
popular
says
culture.
when he says man, he thinks he's got it all figured out.
The sentiment would still be in an episode, but like they would use different.
But
words
look, we
and
know
dialogue.
it's ridiculous because Larry is nowhere near to figuring out women at all.
Right.
So yeah.
And I just want like a small aside. I've always had this theory. I think I've mentioned it before, but this just reinforces like I don't think Jennifer's that into Larry. It's not convincing to me the whole time. She like in the early episodes, she like never kissed him. She always was awkward and walked away. It's not convincing to me.
No, but there is some funny observations Balky has about the relationship at the end, and what she does.
Yeah, right. Okay. So we'll get to that. Okay, so back in the scene, the scene actually changes to later that night, and we are in the girls' apartment's bathroom.
Yeah, we never seen it before,
and we see there's like a door on the right that's open into the rest of the apartment, and we see that like stripy wallpaper that was like all over pattern that was all over.
She's got the nightgown with the same pattern, yes.
But in the bathroom, it's like very stereotypically girly for some reason. It's like pink and light green.
Green tiles and pink curtains. Let's just mention that.
I don't know.
Yes.
I guess that's what a lady's bathroom looked like in the 80s.
Sure.
And
look, it looks dated to us now, but it's very much of the time.
It does look very dated. And Larry's in the bathtub. I might add, he's still in like his like creased slacks and collared shirt and tie.
Yeah, he's wearing a tie
with the
to fix
sleeves
the
rolled
shower head.
up.
Yeah.
Larry, I don't know. Even for the 80s, I think he must have been like a peculiar 20-something-year-old. We never saw him in like jeans and a t-shirt. But in any case, he's in the bathtub trying to do some plumbing in a tie and a collared shirt. And the first thing he does is try to unscrew the old shower head with his hands, but it doesn't move at all. And so then he goes into this toolbox and he pulls out this giant like wrench clamp thing, and he clamps it onto the pipe, and he starts trying to turn it with the handle, but it still doesn't move.
He's nowhere near the shower head also where he puts it on the pipe.
It's like
way
up on
back.
the pipe at the top. It's not by the shower head. But it still doesn't move. And then he pulls on it with both hands until like he's like this tiny person until his feet leave the ground, and he's like doing pull-ups on the handle of this wrench that's attached to the pipe.
A surprising upper body strength from Marklin Baker. That's not easy to do.
I actually wondered if that was him because his head is totally turned.
He's doing pull-ups. That's him.
Yeah, I think but he doesn't have that much weight to pull up, so.
He doesn't, but that's hard. That's not easy. Try doing that.
Yeah.
And then Balky walks up and he sees what's going on, and he's like, cousin, can I offer you anything? A tool, a ladder, a can of WD-40? And Larry's like, I'm fine. I'm doing fine, as he's hanging there from the wrench. And then Balky's like, cousin, I hope you'll accept this in the spirit in which it's given. But as far as I can see, you seem to have absolutely no idea what you're doing.
This is bold of Balky finally to call him out.
It's just like, you don't know what you're doing.
This whole episode, he's at this point where he's just calling him out, which he hasn't really done much before. A little bit, but not much.
And they get into a little routine about, he's like, what are you talking about? Balky's like, I think you're doing it completely wrong. And Larry's like, oh, you do? And he goes, yes, I do. Oh, you do? I do. You do? I do. And then finally, Larry cuts him off and goes, Balky, how many showers are there on Mypos? How many? And Balky goes, none. It's an island, which is kind of funny.
Which gets a big laugh, but I don't really understand the joke.
Do they bathe in the rivers? I don't know. There's no showers. There's just bathtubs.
I feel like it's a punchline related to showers. How many showers are there on Mypos? None. It's an island.
Yeah, nobody bathes. Nobody takes showers on an island. You bathe in the shallow pools. Anyways.
Bucket baths. Anyway, if anyone understands this joke better than I do, please pipe up. Pipe up, huh?
It's the old pipe up. I get it. It's the old Larry bit. And how many showers have you replaced? And Balky's like, well, how many? Well, how many? How many showers have you replaced? And
none.
Balky goes, none. None as in zero. As in never, ever have you replaced a shower head. And then Balky just goes, that is correct. And then I love this line. Larry goes, I see. And yet you are telling me, someone who has been around showers for over a quarter of a century, that I'm doing it wrong? Just because you've been taking showers for 25 years, right. Larry Appleton.
Doesn't mean you know how to fix a shower head. I mean, I've been taking showers my whole life, too. I don't know if
I've been driving since I'm 16. I can't figure. I don't know how my car works. And then again, Balky goes, that is correct.
Larry's like, all right, well, you want to tell me the right way? And Balky says, yes, I would. Would you? Yes, I would. Would you? I would. What is the right way? I don't know.
I don't know.
He goes, but this is him calling him out more. He goes, but I just know you're doing it the wrong way. And he says, cousin, what did the directions say? And here we get Again, the classic setup from every sitcom that has had a plumbing disaster scene. Directions, I threw them out. And he said, my father made it through his whole life without ever reading a set of directions. He once rewired the entire house without directions. To which Balky responds, isn't that the house that burned to the ground?
And Larry's like, they never proved there was the wiring. It's so funny. So we learn a little bit about the Appleton family. The men don't read directions.
Yes. And so then Larry guilts him. He's like, are you just going to stand there and insult my family? Or are you going to help me? And Balky's like, okay, I'll help. And he says, what do you want me to do? And then comes one
Oh, this is probably the highlight.
The highlights of, there were a few highlights in this episode, but this one is like one where you laugh, where you just laugh out loud.
This is the scene they showed in the CNN documentary, by the way.
Oh my goodness. This next bit is just so funny. Okay.
So, yeah.
So Larry gives Balky the wrench and he goes over the toolbox and he pulls out a hammer. And Balky's just holding the wrench. And Balky looks at him. He goes, that's a hammer. And Larry's like, very good. And Balky says, I don't believe I've ever heard the hammer referred to as the plumber's helper.
And Larry's like, it wasn't my house.
They exchange tools. He gives Balky the hammer. He takes the wrench back and they switch spots. So Larry's up by the shower head and Balky's behind him in the tub. They're both standing in the tub. And Larry puts the wrench back onto the pipe, clamps it, again, not anywhere near the shower head. And he holds it with his right hand and he turns open toward the camera and he tells Balky, and first of all, before I say it, I gotta say, like, Larry should have known better by now. He's been, but it's a hilarious for the scene. But like, he's been living with Balky for a long time. He knows that words matter.
Be careful of the words you choose when you talk to Balky.
So what he says is, Balky, I'll hold the wrench. You've got the hammer. When I nod my head, you hit it.
And right there, even like, I think the audience gasps.
What's coming right there. The audience is like, oh boy.
And Balky's
and
like,
as a viewer watching it, you just get excited. You're like, oh yeah, this is going to be amazing.
It's going to be great.
So Balky stares at Larry like, come again? And Larry just goes, when I nod my head, you hit it. And Balky's like, I can't do that. He's starting to panic. He has anxiety. And he says, and Larry's like getting annoyed. He's like, Balky, don't make this complicated. I'll hold the wrench. You've got the hammer. When I nod my head, you hit it. You hit it.
He's screaming at him.
He starts like crying and like he's clutching this hammer and he's sobbing. And Larry's like, do you understand? He's like, yes. And he's crying and sobbing. And Larry's like, are you ready? And Balky's like, yes. And he steps into position and then he raises the hammer with both hands like up behind his head, right? Like it's a huge swing with the hammer and he's still like panicking and sobbing. And he waits for Larry's cue. Larry nods and he swings the hammer back behind his head. And then Larry just goes, wait! But it's funnier in the scene because it happens so fast. You hit it. You hit it. Do you understand?
You hit it.
Do you understand? Yes. Are you ready? Yes. And then he goes, wait. Because you think, like, you up until that moment.
It's like, when is Larry going to figure it out? He's
going to smash his head. Yeah. And when is Larry going to hear what he said? And so he screams, wait. And he's, what are you doing? And Balky explains, you said when you nod your head, I'm supposed to hit it. And then, of course, he goes, the wrench, hit the wrench. And he's exasperated. He grasps his head.
There's a great look. He just puts his hand on his head and his eyes are just like, oh my God. And then it just goes, I'll do it myself. And Balky goes, good, because I'm emotionally drained. He turns,
which is also a nice pun for this episode.
I didn't even get that. He's emotionally drained. And he turned and he's like crying to himself, clutching his chest.
My goodness, God. He was about to bash his best friend in the head with a hammer.
He told him to do it. He said it. When I nod my head, you hit it.
You hit it. You hit it. When I nod my head, you hit it.
I'm just doing what you tell me, cousin.
Oh, what a scene. So funny. Okay, so then Larry takes the hammer back. He's going to do it himself. He holds onto the wrench with one hand. He steadies the hammer. He gives it like a hit, just like a tap. And the whole pipe snaps off.
Uh-oh.
Breaks off. The wrench is still attached to the pipe. The whole thing just comes off the wall.
That's not good.
And Balky says, the pipe broke, huh?
Larry's like, yes, it did.
And this is so funny. Then Balky just like reaches over and turns the shower head from the pipe. Larry's like holding this broken pipe with the wrench and everything. And Balky just like unscrews the shower head easily.
Quite easily. Just couldn't finally got it off. Oh, boy. What's going to happen?
Well, obviously, Larry loosened it up for him.
I guess, with hanging on it. You hit it. Oh, listener, if you enjoy this episode and you want to meet other fans of Perfect Strangers, we got a great place we set up. A little Perfect Strangers fan community. It is our Facebook group. There's a link in the show notes to the Dance of Joy podcast group. And I post a thread there every week of the show we're recording so you can get involved, join the conversation. We're going to shout out some of our listeners' observations about this episode.
Please do. The conversations are very, very fun. Our listeners are picking through every little detail and offering really interesting insights, things we don't think about sometimes. Everybody brings something to the conversation, and it's really, really fun.
Fun place to hang out. Join it today. Okay, Act 2, sister. Let's start.
Let's see what happens.
Begins the next day with a close-up of this new shower head. Yeah, but But you notice something weird about this shot is there's in the background there seem to be some holes in the wall. And as the camera pans back, you see a lot more holes in the wall of the girls' bathroom. And it shows Larry and Balky finally revealed, covered in dust, sitting in the bathroom. And the bathroom is a wreck. I mean, it's like if you were going to demo a bathroom, this is how you would start demoing a bathroom.
Oh, boy.
And Larry's like, you see, Balky, we did it. All it took was good old American ingenuity. Larry goes, a little dedication, and Balky goes, and 23 straight hours of work.
Oh, boy. And they're covered. They're messy.
They sit on the edge of the tub, and Balky's like, boy, cousin, this place looked like the Tidy Bowl man went berserk.
Here's our next reference.
Another very topical commercial reference, because you don't see these commercials anymore. Do you remember the Tidy Bowl man?
Barely.
It was an ad campaign for Tidy Bowl toilet cleaning products. And it's like you hang this little bottle, inside the toilet tank. But in the commercial, there was a tiny man, the Tidy Bowl man. He would ride a boat inside the toilet tank around and around.
So if he went berserk, did he ever go berserk? What is that?
It means like the Tidy Bowl man came out and just wrecked things. It was literally a guy in like a little sailor hat, like a sailor hat and a turtleneck and a jacket. Tidy Bowl man.
I think there must have been something more to this. There must have been a commercial where the Tidy Bowl man made holes in the wall or
that's
ruined
the joke.
Something?
Is he wouldn't ruin something, and this time he came
angry.
out.
Yeah.
Now, Mr. Clean, that guy's a bruiser. You seen him? He'd come and mess things up. He'd punch holes
Clean
in the wall.
had a temper and punched the wall.
Mr. Clean has anger management problems, but Tidy Bowl man wouldn't. He was like the most nicest, peace-loving guy. That's the joke. And then, so Larry is like, you want to make an omelet? You have to break some eggs, as he comments. And then he goes, a few cans of spackle. You'll never know we've been here. And Balky's like, whoa, boy, this spackle must be amazing stuff. And Larry just goes, yes, it is.
And then we have a moment, which is another favorite moment of mine. Really good. Like when I was rewatching this week, the first time I watched it, I knew what was coming, but it was still so funny. So it's this moment where they do so much without any dialogue, and it is just hilarious. So they start cleaning up the bathroom because Jennifer and Marianne are going to return later that night. And so they're like, let's clean all this up. And it's like a mess. There's like debris everywhere, holes in the wall. They're covered in dust. And Balky picks up from the floor a long piece of pipe with a valve on it, like a knob.
Yeah.
And they both look at it. Balky asks, he says, cousin, where does this go? Okay. And that's the last verbal spoken thing for a while. He says, cousin, where does this go? And they're standing next to each other and they do this, the thing that these two actors do so well, like they synchronize their movements. So they both turn to look at it. Then they both turn in the same direction to look behind them at the bathtub walls
destruction
with all
that they've
the
made.
holes.
Yeah.
as if they're like considering where it could go, but their heads turn the same angle at the same time. Then they both turn back to the pipe and it's silent the whole time. And even after they turn back to the pipe, there's still silence. They're holding this pause for effect, and it works so well. Yep. And then finally, Larry goes, trash. And somehow, like the whole time, the audience is already laughing in the dialogue-less part, like when they do the synchronized movement. The audience is already laughing. And this took like a long time before that line trash came, but the whole time, like, somehow I just knew he was going to say trash. I'm like, he's going to say trash. So he just says trash, meh. And Balky just tosses it aside onto the floor. It was really, really good. I don't know if I described it well.
Just the way he just goes, trash.
Trash. But after, like, considering the holes in the wall, looking around in synchronized movements, and finally, he's like, trash.
Yeah, so then Larry goes, all right, it's time to test this baby out. And he turns on one of the faucets in the bathtub. And they're standing there looking at it. Nothing happens at first. And you hear a rumbling. And then suddenly, the pressure of the water shoots the shower head right off the pipe, sending it flying across the bathroom, breaking the mirror above the sink. And the water is shooting out, hitting the mirror clear across the bathroom.
That is a lot of pressure.
And they are standing there looking at each other, and Larry tries to turn off the faucet, and he's spinning both of them, and it comes off in his hand. And he goes, it's broken. And Balky goes, no, you don't say. So they both climb into the bathtub, use their hands to cover the broken pipe, and eventually they stop the flow of water, and it stops for a second, but then the faucet at the sink behind them, the faucet pops off. There's water shooting straight up into the air as the hot and cold taps both fly off the sink. And then I love this. Larry goes to Balky. He goes, do something.
So then Balky, so there's like water shooting everywhere. Larry's still plugging up the pipe from the shower head. And Balky heads over to the sink across the room, and he tries to plug those holes. And but the water's shooting straight up, and it's in his face. And by now they're both like completely soaked. And he stops that leak.
Remember, you know what that reminded me of? Where he's like trying to cover it, and it's shoot. Remember, you ever do this in the park at the public water fountain?
Yeah,
you would put your thumb over the thing and spray your friends.
Yeah, exactly.
It was the same thing was happening to Balky. He's shooting water while he's trying to stop
this. The young ones don't know anything that you just said.
Public water fountains seems like a weird concept.
Yeah. But anyway, so then he plugs up the holes at the sink, and Larry has plugged up the shower head pipe, and so
they got it covered.
They got it covered, but then there's more rumbling. Then the toilet seat flies open, and like this gush of water, this geyser shooting straight up out of the toilet, which ew, gross. But toilet water shooting straight up, and now it's like a very intense bidet.
The girls have a bidet now. It's
bonus. But it's like shooting up to the ceiling. And Larry's like, you got to turn off the valve. And Balky's like, I think it's under the sink, but he can't get to it because his fingers are stuck in the faucet pipes. He's like, my fingers are stuck. And then he goes, go on without me, cousin, save yourself.
And then Larry, he's going to help. He moves his hands from the shower pipe, and that shoots right into Balky's back as Larry helps Balky
and
get
Balky
free.
Does like a weird,
she's getting water right down his back. So he pulls Balky's hands out of the faucet sink, and spins Balky places him on the toilet bowl. And Balky seems to enjoy this part.
This is the funniest part.
As he's riding the stream coming from the toilet.
And his face is just going, ooh.
So funny.
Because there's like a very forceful bidet hitting him.
Oh my God, it's hilarious. But then Larry pulls him off, and they get to the cabinet under the sink, and they open it, and you would have thought they were on the Titanic as it was going down.
It gushed out.
Because there's no way all this water is coming out, just shooting at him.
There's also like a pool. There's like water accumulating. It's flooding the room.
Floating around.
Yeah,
it's getting
the debris
bad.
Floating around. Oh, it's a lot of water. And it looked too clean to me, though, but, television.
It's clean toilet water.
And so he finally finds the valve, and the water stops, and then they're completely soaked. They both sit on the floor of this bathroom. They're like exhausted. There's like parts of the wall floating around. And then Larry goes, well,
Well, fine. We get another one as well. Remember from the pen pal episode? Well.
Yes. So this was another, like the
God.
exploding Bibi Babkas last time. This was another like scene that stuck with people for ages, and it was hilarious, and it still lives up to watch it now. It's so funny.
We'll talk a little bit about how they pulled this off in studio a little bit later, but that's the end of Act 2. Before we get to the final act, are the girls going to freak out when they see what has happened? Listener, consider supporting the show if you've been listening to us every week. If you look forward to Fridays again, back like it was back in 1989 and TGIF was going to be on and you were excited to get home and watch Full House, then consider supporting this podcast. Visit danceofjoypod.com/support. You can click that little buy us a coffee button and consider making a tip, a donation. It helps, all goes back into the show, keeps us caffeinated and keeps the show going.
Act 3. We are at Act 3. What is going to happen?
Oh, boy.
So Act 3 opens. Balky and Larry are back in their own living room waiting for the girls to arrive.
There's some concern, though, as you hear Balky ask Larry, he goes, cousin, what if the shower head comes off again? And Larry's like, everything is fine. Believe me, when Jennifer gets here and starts gushing with gratitude, it'll all be worth it. He goes, to me anyway, if you're interested, I'll throw a little bit of the credit your way. And Balky's like, no, cousin, I want you to have all the credit.
Balky has learned a thing or two about his cousin Larry by now. Larry's like, fine. There's a knock at the door. It's the girls. And as Larry goes to open the door, he like very smugly says to Balky, feel free to take notes.
Oh, we'll be taking some notes here, Larry Appleton.
And now we have some funny moments from Marianne.
Yeah, you got to have a Marianne joke. Come on.
Marianne joke
She's
coming
here.
up. Ding,
Yeah.
ding, ding.
Yeah.
As she walks in the door, she's got a bottle of wine. And she says, we brought some wine from Paris. It's imported. And Larry takes the bottle and he looks at it and he's like, this wine is from California. And Marianne's like, well, in Paris, they said it was imported.
Yes, of course they did, Marianne.
And
Yes,
then
it's
Jennifer
correct.
just goes, I tried to tell her.
So good.
It's so funny. In Paris, they said it was imported. She brought California wine back from Paris.
Oh, man.
I love it.
Well, and then here's the big moment. Larry gets his chance as to be hero, as Jennifer says. Larry, thanks for letting the plumber in. That shower massage felt great after a long flight. And at this point, Larry has this smug, I told you so look on his face as he slowly turns to Balky to hand him the bottle of wine. And Balky's eyes are rolling so hard that I thought he was going to die as he grabs the bottle. And Larry goes, it wasn't the plumber who eased those sore aching muscles, Jennifer. I replaced the shower head myself. And what is Jennifer's response to this, sister?
She goes, oh, well, whatever. Which just proves my theory that she's not really that into him.
It's fantastic.
She's like, okay, cool story, bro.
She's like, nice. Okay. Well, whatever, Larry Appleton. And so she walks over to the table and sits down, and Balky's like, no need to take notes as he walks away to set the wine down.
But Larry is not ready to give up just yet. He still thinks he's going to win over Jennifer with his like feats of plumbing, manly feats of plumbing. And he tells Balky, look, they just got off the plane. They're still adjusting to the time zone. He's like, the girl will gush with gratitude, guaranteed. There's our alliteration for the episode. And so he's convinced. He's like, just watch and learn. And they go over to the couch and Larry starts. He begins his machismo. He says, Jennifer, it felt good getting my hands on the old monkey wrench again. First of all, okay,
Larry.
this is a family-friendly show, Larry.
Interesting choice of words there.
And anyway, he says, I forgot how much I enjoyed it. And then Jennifer's just like, okay, I'm happy for you, Larry. She's like a little confused. And then Balky's like, I hope we didn't make too much of a mess in the bathroom. And Marianne's like, well, how much of a mess can you make just changing a shower head? And Balky's like, well, you'd be surprised.
And Larry's like, what Balky means is that even the simplest of home repairs can be tough if someone doesn't know what he's doing.
Right? Larry is such a, ugh.
And then Balky goes, take it from cousin Larry. And then Larry still just trying again. He goes, well, It must give you a real sense of security knowing there's a man around in case there's a crisis. And Balky goes, or in case you want a crisis, which is, I thought was the best line, the best day. He's just getting him, tagging him after every line.
Larry suggests that Balky pour the wine for the group, and Balky's like, good idea, better me than you. He doesn't want Larry to, pull another plumbing fiasco with the wine.
Stay away from liquid Larry Appleton.
Stay away from anything Larry Appleton.
And then we find out Marianne is quite observant, actually, because she goes, it's weird. I could have sworn that when we left our bathroom, the tile was green, and now it's blue. And Larry's like, well, sometimes even the simplest things like a new shower head can change the whole look of a bathroom, as he's trying to explain away. So clearly they replaced the tiles up there with different color tiles.
Yeah, that's interesting because you'd think he would cover his tracks a little better if he was trying to really pull off this lie to impress.
You didn't even bother trying to use the same color tile. He'd be like, they're not going to notice.
Well, they probably ran out of time. He's like, do whatever. Yeah, I don't know how he thought they weren't going to notice, but Marianne noticed. Marianne, it's her apartment and everything matches. So they keep talking, and we see Balky off to the side, and he's poured red wine into 4 glasses, and he's carrying them over when he's still off to the side of the couch when we see water start dripping from the ceiling in front of him, and only he sees it at this point.
Yeah.
Just dripping, and he's holding these glasses, and he's trying to catch the water in the wine glasses, which is like, ew, gross, you're going to drink that then? And he's like trying to be like, cousin Larry. And he's trying to get Larry's attention. Larry's still like bragging loudly on the couch about.
I did love the sound mix in this because you hear him, it's fainter, but you hear Larry telling the whole story about his father rewired the house and how he's going to plumb it. You hear him bragging the whole time. No one is looking over at Balky holding the glasses, catching the drips of water. As another leak springs out to Balky's left, and he tries to catch that one as well, and there's another one that's closer, and he walks over and he tries to catch that one, and he's still trying to get Larry's attention. He's going, cousin, and Larry's like, Balky, I'm in the middle of a story. And it's dripping, and then the drip stops just as Larry looks and turns. He goes, he gets up, he grabs the drink out of Balky's hand, but he's still not looking at Balky as the drip starts again.
He takes the first glass and he passes it to the girls, and then he takes the next one, and each subsequent one Balky uses to catch leaks. But Larry's face is turned away to the girls, so he's not seeing any of this. He's just grabbing the glass one by one and passing them out. And then we have another funny line from Marianne because Larry takes a sip of this glass, and you can see it doesn't look exactly like red wine.
Dripping ceiling water.
And Larry's like, oh, this is a lovely rosé. And Marianne goes, that's funny. It wasn't a rosé when I bought it. Because now it's watered down with gross plumbing water that they're drinking.
And then finally, Balky's like, cousin, we seem to have sprung a little leak. And now everybody has noticed that there's water dripping from the ceiling. As Larry goes, all right, don't worry. He runs over to the fireplace and he grabs a metal thing. What is that? That's where you put your umbrella in?
It's like a thing to put your... No, it's by the fireplace. It's to put your...
to put the pokers in
thing to put the fireplace tools in.
The fire
I don't know what they're called.
So he goes, no need to panic, and he puts the thing there to catch the water, and Marianne's like, well, shouldn't we call the landlord? And Larry doesn't want to call the landlord because he knows he made a big mess upstairs, and he puts the thing down, and they just watch it drip, and it eventually stops dripping. Larry goes, there, whatever it was, it stopped. And he goes, now, come on, let's not let a little dripping ruin a fantastic evening. And they all sit back down on the couch. He goes, remember, into every life, a little rain must fall.
What?
So they're all
He's just asking. He's just tempting.
He's tempting the gods right now. They're
sitting there, and then another leak starts right in front of them onto the coffee table, into the wine glass. And again, here's like a funny synchronized physical bit. All 4 of them in a row sitting on the couch. They all look up slowly. And Jennifer says, isn't our bathroom right up there? Uh-oh. And Balky and Larry look at each other. And so Balky and Larry at this point are in the middle on the couch. Right. And the girls are on the outer edges, right? So Balky and Larry look at each other. And then the ceiling gives way. We just see this downpour of water right on top of Balky and Larry, like concentrated coming down. Of course, the girls are getting splashed off to the side, but the water is just on Balky and Larry.
Getting the sofa.
And it's so funny. And nobody moves. And so, and it goes on for a while,
a few
right?
seconds. It's a
the
few second heavy pour.
They're just looking at each other, and the girls are
moving.
turned.
It's amazing.
Their faces are turned inward, just looking at them, and nobody moves out of the way. They just sit there.
As the water just drenched. It's the funniest thing. It's the funniest reaction.
So funny.
My only problem with this whole thing is, why is the girls' bathroom above their living room? This is not how buildings are constructed. Apartment buildings.
Comedy.
Yeah, it makes no sense that their bathtub is above
a lot of these stories,
the living room.
Require us to, what is it called?
Suspension of disbelief. Because think about it. All the bathrooms in an apartment building are all stacked in the same area. There's a reason for that.
And also someone pipes. One of our listeners pointed out in the Facebook group that if you think back to the girls' bathroom set where the window was, it was on our left side as we watch, which makes no sense according to Balky and Larry's apartment, which has a window on the right side.
Yeah, I thought they lived on the other side of the building, not directly above them. Yeah. Whatever. It's fine.
It's comedy.
It is hilarious for the effect. I'll tell you that much.
And I didn't realize they were like just on the floor upstairs. Like right upstairs.
Also, where there's like no debris from the ceiling. It's literally just
there was
water.
no debris. It was just water.
Like someone just pouring water down.
Again, comedy.
Yeah, so great.
So that's funny, and that goes on for a little while.
Yes.
Nobody moves, and the audience is going crazy, and you're at home laughing. And then we cut to the next scene. It's a little bit later. We're still in the apartment. Balky is soaked, and he's on the phone in the kitchen. He's holding like a notepad, taking notes, and we hear him say, well, that depends on what you plumbers call an emergency. And he says, did you see the Poseidon Adventure? Now, this is a pretty dated reference that I wouldn't have gotten. But
super dated, but this movie was known. Like, so in the 70s, they had the disaster movies were a huge genre, and this is one of the more popular disaster movies, 1972. And these movies generally featured an all-star cast. So they would get all the crazy actors together and put them in a burning building or put them in a drowning boat. This one, Gene Hackman, Ernest Borgnine, Red Buttons, Shelley Winters, Roddy McDowell, all in the Poseidon Adventure.
But what was it about? Was it about a water emergency?
It was like a Titanic. It was a boat that turned over. I think it was about a boat.
Water-based
it was a flooding. It was a flooding. I thought it was on a boat.
That would make sense.
Other movies at the time were Airport, Earthquake, Towering Inferno.
The Poseidon Adventure.
I think it was on a boat.
Was a majestic passenger ship.
It's like a Titanic.
The SS Poseidon is overtaken by a tidal wave en route from New York City to Greece on New Year's Eve.
So you have people climbing through like this upside down boat as it's filling up with water, and it's very exciting and scary. Anyways, that's everyone would have known the Poseidon Adventure. Now you would make a Titanic joke because of the James Cameron Titanic movie. Right,
because we didn't have the Titanic film, the iconic Titanic film in 1988. I think I want to watch the Poseidon Adventure. Let's take a little aside. This description is really interesting. En route from New York City to Greece on New Year's Eve, majestic passenger ship, the SS Poseidon, is overtaken by a tidal wave. With the captain, played by Leslie Nielsen, with the captain dead, surviving passengers, including the passionate Reverend Scott, Gene Hackman, band together in the ship's ballroom. The group struggles to avert fires, flooding, structural instability, and mechanical malfunctions as they make their way through a maze of ladders and tunnels in their desperate attempt to escape a watery grave. Was this a drama or a comedy?
No, this is like a disaster movie. It's a
adventure
drama.
Thriller.
Yeah, no, it's a scary movie. Like the whole thing's upside down. They're in an upside down luxury liner, and they got to figure out how to get
Nielsen.
out. I didn't know Leslie Nielsen is in there.
Okay, we need to watch the Poseidon Adventure. That's a whole nother
Towering Inferno is another one. You're like, it's the building's on fire. You got to make it up.
Okay. Yeah. Put a pin in that. Back to the episode.
Tangents. Get back to the episode, you fools. That's
back
what the
to the episode.
Right
Yes. They're like, Sophia and Imran, shut up. Back to the episode. Okay. Balky's asking the plumber if they've seen the Poseidon Adventure. At the front door of the apartment, Larry is standing with the girls, and they all have yellow towels around their shoulder. They all have wet hair and everything. And Jennifer is like, I just don't understand why you tried to fix it yourself. And Larry is now kind of like his pathetic, whiny, lovable loser Larry. And he's whiny. He's like, I thought that's what you wanted. And Jennifer's like, I wanted you to call the plumber. Seemed so simple.
Sure did, Jennifer. Sure did.
And just then Balky joins them by the front door, and he says the plumber's on his way. And he tells Larry, he said to have your checkbook ready plus any CDs that might have matured. So now in 1988, these CDs are not what
joke.
We know about CDs.
No, that's like a
what did it stand for?
I didn't look this one up. I can't remember, but it was like an investment thing. You had a certificate of something, I'm sure. It's like stocks and bonds that you would invest it in.
Certificate of deposit.
Deposit, yes. That's where it was a savings account, I guess, kind of thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
So basically, it's like you need to have a lot of money.
Yes, he's telling them this is going to be pricey. So the girls go upstairs to wait for the plumber for real this time, which they should have done the first time. As Larry closes the door, walks the balcony, and then he's, again, like you said, he's honest, lovable loser Larry, and he's like, Balky, why do I do this?
Which is also how the Bibi Bobka episode sort of ended. He's like, why do I do this?
This is very similar to the Bibi Bobka episode in a lot of ways. So, and he walks across the room, and it's so funny because you could hear the squishing of his feet as his
squishy wet shoes are funny every time.
The sofa's
even
wet.
In real life.
They had to clean all that up. What a horrible mess that made. He goes, why didn't I just call the plumber in the first place? And Balky tries to answer, and of course Larry's not listening. He just interrupts again. Or after the pipe broke. Why didn't I realize it?
And he's like, well, cousin, because...
Or after the toilet exploded. What does it take? What is the matter? What is wrong with me?
And Balky very aptly says, well, cousin, part of the problem is you tend to ask questions and then not wait for the answers.
Yes, you do, Larry. And then he goes, Balky, how did I let things go so far?
And then Balky hits us with some Mipos color.
Yeah.
He says, well, cousin, you sometimes get an idea in your head and then you just won't let it go. You remind me of this dog I used to know on Mipos. First of all, the idea of a dog I used to know, which is so funny. You remind me of this dog I used to know on Mipos. He was always chasing his tail, and then one day he caught it and spun himself to death. It wasn't a pretty sight.
Oh, no.
Larry, I don't even understand that, but it's funny.
He just that image of the dog, and it just kept spinning until it died because he gets an idea in his head, and Larry's like, well, I guess I do get carried away sometimes, to which Balky rolls his eyes again so hard up into his head, and he goes, I just thought if I could do it myself, Jennifer would be impressed. And cue the lesson time music right here.
The lesson is amazing because it involves one of these Balky underhanded compliment.
Yeah, I love the insult compliments. Yes.
Insult compliments. And Balky says, cousin, listen, Jennifer likes you for what you are, and you want her to like you for what you are not. This is so observant, so insightful.
Yeah.
And then Larry's like, well, I figured if she thought I was a macho, handy, take charge kind of guy, she'd like me even more. And then Balky's like, Jennifer doesn't want a macho, handy, take charge kind of guy. She wants you.
And the best part is, this is the last line. Larry shots. Roll credits.
So Larry, we don't ever get to see Larry absorbing his lesson.
I love that. It ends on the dig, and they don't waste any time getting out.
I love it.
Fantastic end to a pretty classic, hilarious, another hilarious episode, after Bibi Bobka episode.
But this is a great lesson. It's very insightful. Jennifer likes you for what you are, and you want her to like you for what you are not.
And she doesn't want a macho, handy, take charge kind of guy.
She wants a guy who will just let the plumber in.
Yeah, that's all she wanted, Larry Appleton. You got to listen. You got to listen. Anyways, listener, listen to me. Buy some Dance of Joy podcast merch because you can show your friends and the world that you listen to the show and how much you love Perfect Strangers. Visit our TeePublic shop at danceofjoypod.com/shop.
Yes, because obviously they're not going to believe you unless you have a T-shirt or a coffee cup.
You'll be cool because you'll be the only one that has it, or a tote
face
bag.
mask, or a tote bag,
travel mug.
No one will believe you otherwise.
Hoodie. There's lots of fun things there. Check it out. Buy some stuff. Send us a photo.
All right, let's talk about what do we think about this. First of all, again, everyone agrees this was like very similar to the Bibi Bobka episode. This was like a great, iconic episode that people remembered many decades later.
Both of them featuring elaborate gags,
mechanical gags and special effects.
Yeah. So I love that. And both of them with Larry just taking things too far.
And some of our listeners pointed out that it was strange on Hulu as we're watching it now that these two episodes are back to back. But I believe back in 1988, they actually aired a month apart.
Yeah,
so
there's some weird
in that era. It made it made more sense. Here, it's like two very similar structured episodes back to back on Hulu, but we didn't have Hulu then. We weren't binge watching things.
And if you look at the air date for the next episode, that air date is actually before this one. So right. I don't know. They played out of order. They aired out of order. But I like having both of them back to back because they are it's like prime examples.
Oh, yeah. It's just joy and more joy.
Of peak Perfect Strangers.
Also, the cast and crew, I believe, also thought this was one of their favorite, funniest episodes. And we talked a little bit about how the when I nod my head, you hit it bit was
it's
like
so good.
Just got so many laughs. And actually, this was the longest laugh getter bit in the show. And the audience reaction was edited down.
Yeah, apparently I've seen this. A lot of people reporting that the laugh lasted so long because it was so funny. And yeah, they're going to cut it down. We talked about why didn't they just call the landlord? And it made me wonder, is Twinkassetti still the landlord of this building?
Where's Twinkassetti? They're still apparently in the same building.
Same Twinkassetti. Where's Twinkassetti?
But yeah, they could have just called the landlord. That's what you do when you live in an apartment, when you rent an apartment. I don't know why they're dealing with plumbers directly. But again, it's for comedy.
And then the other interesting thing about how they filmed this episode that I found out is that the scene with the water gushing, the specific short Act 2 scene, that was not shot in front of a live studio audience. That was filmed the day before. And so the audience watched the live taping and they watched that on a monitor so that they could record the laughter that goes over the scene. So I thought that was an interesting way to do it. They filmed that bit before just the whole water stuff.
Yeah, I can't. Yeah. Because of I wonder if they did that with the Bibi Bobkas too or not. No, that one was in front of them.
Bibi Bobkas was live, and then actually in the third act, the water dousing was live.
Okay,
but just
that's so
because
funny,
I think just the complexity.
You can't have two water scenes in the same taping because everything would be wet.
Right. I think because there is so much water, so the complexity of that gag, like you had to have it a little bit controlled.
Yeah, just like you couldn't do more than one take of the Bibi Bobkas.
They must have built like a special set with walls to hold that water because it was flooding.
Oh, that's right. Because how was it flooding?
Stuff was floating. But still, amazing comedy, amazing, ambitious physical stunts and gags.
Hey, man, have you ever changed a shower head?
No, and I call my buddy Gabe over. He does a lot of things. He's a plumber because there's like this blue tape, and you got to make sure it's a watertight seal. You got to do it right. It's probably easy enough, but
I've definitely looked up how to change a shower head, but I've never actually done it. Like I've almost done it, and I've thought about doing it, and I've looked it up.
Like that's got to be a watertight seal. And you just have to know how to do it. It's probably not that hard, though.
I don't think it's that hard, but
I like to employ independent contractors and give people work. So I will call my friend over and pay him to do.
Good, as you should.
Yeah,
as you should. All right, Balkyisms. We had some good Balkyisms because when it comes to plumbing, you don't know Bo Diddley.
You don't know Bo Diddley.
And also something about Meepos being an island, which I don't understand.
It doesn't have a shower. They don't have showers.
It doesn't have a shower because it's an island.
Yeah.
He does not say don't be ridiculous at all.
Of course I have. Don't be ridiculous.
There, we have to have it on our show, though. We get from Larry a balky. And we have Balky going, huh.
I don't know. And
yes. The pipe broke, And then we have Larry's like, well,
the return of
well. We have some other classic gags. The whole premise is one of the classic recurring gags where Larry's doing something dumb to impress Jennifer.
Yeah.
But we are at a point where Balky knows it now.
I mean, just like how they met. Remember how sore they got when he's trying to impress her at the gym? That was hilarious.
Does Larry ever learn? No.
No.
We have this nudge, wink, laughing about innuendo between Larry and Balky. And then at the end, Balky doesn't understand what they're talking about. And then we have this bit where Larry's like, how many times have you ever?
None.
How many shower heads have you changed? None, as in zero, as in never have you ever, blah, blah, blah. Always lovely. We love that every time.
There was no Dimitri appearances. I guess they weren't really in their apartment that much, except for at the end. Well,
that's okay that we don't have Dimitri appearance in the episode because we do have a brand new post from our friend Dimitri Sheep on Instagram.
Oh, and this is kind of a scandalous one. Dimitri Sheep's bathing. Ooh.
If you are new to our podcast, Dimitri Sheep is a brilliant Instagram account that I believe was inspired by our podcast because we spoke about this at our season break special, and then suddenly it was. It is Dimitri the sheep posting clever images themed to every episode. So, what do we have in this episode's post? The location on the post is Chicago Flow Plumbing. I think this could have been an opportunity to have it be Pipe Dreams Plumbing, although they didn't come. So,
they never showed up.
But Chicago Plumbing Company. And then we have, we have Dimitri the stuffed sheep in the shower with a shower cap on. It's a bit of a girly shower cap.
It's a lovely shower cap, yeah.
And then there's like a tray or something on the edge. Oh, he's in the bathtub, actually. And on the tray, there's like some soap, a shower poof, a wrench and a hammer, and some travel shampoo bottles, and a little rubber duck.
And a little blue rubber ducky.
A blue rubber duck.
And some fancy soap. Yeah.
Very nice.
Very good.
We get the hammer and wrench reference from the episode.
When
Everything else
is
head, just yes.
Yes.
You hit it. You hit it. When I nod my head, you hit it.
I can't.
Wait.
So good. Well done, Dimitri Sheep. Follow Dimitri Sheep on Instagram.
And we have some of our followers are commenting on these posts now. Cousin Pam asks Dimitri Sheep, "Where's your tie?" That's a good point. That would have been a nice touch. And Dimitri Sheep responds. Dimitri Sheep says, "My cousin Larry, he wear one for both of us. I wear this cap for fixed shower head."
Or fixed shower head.
Very, very clever. As always, we love Dimitri Sheep Instagram account. Please go and follow. It's DIMITRI Sheep, all one word, and join us on this journey. Okay, now we are at the segment in our podcast called Perfect Strangers Today, or PS Today, in which we discuss if this episode were to take place today, if this story were to take place today, how would this episode be different or the same? Would it still hold up? What are your thoughts?
I mean, again, I'm going to say what I said last week about the Bibi Bobka episode. This is another timeless, classic, a universal setup that works anytime. You know, there are other, I think you were talking about this in the beginning, there's other sitcoms that have had plumbing disasters and repairs.
Yeah, well, it's always like you think back. I can think of a Cosby Show episode. I can think of, and I'm sure it goes back to like, I'm sure probably a lot of the buddy comedies, the classic buddy comedies.
Gushing water is always funny in
Gushing
someone's
water
face.
is always funny. It's always funny when someone's like, I don't need to call a plumber. I don't need instructions, directions.
Is the machismo still there? Would that maybe be different? The way Larry's attitude.
The machismo with the plumbing would be there.
Yeah.
That's what I was going to say. I think the episode and the gag holds up. It's like one of these timeless, funny situations. I think, however, if this was being made today, the writers would have changed a little bit about why Larry's behaving this way, and the lines about Jennifer gushing and all that part of the machismo.
It could still be about impressing her, is the thing, you know? You could just, it would just be written a little bit different.
But the lines that are like, that's what women do, those would not be in the episode.
That's what women do when a man's going to come and fix a thing.
That whole bit, I think, would be rewritten. And it would be like trying to brag in some other way without implying that like women are crying for help and need a man to come.
And then we're thinking about like, of course you could look it up on YouTube. Like we talked about, like how it's kind of easy to do. Yeah. But this has been done on a show also?
Yes. Well, not exactly this plumbing. I'm sure some more modern show might have had like this situation with YouTube. But what came to my mind was an episode of Schitt's Creek in which Johnny Rose tries to fix a water heater at the hotel. And he's like watching it on YouTube, watching a YouTube on his phone. But the gag there is that he doesn't realize he can pause the
Eugene
YouTube.
Levy's character, the old
and
father.
So he's like, the guy on the YouTube's like, all right, first step is turn off the valve or whatever. And he's like, where's the valve? I'm looking. And then the guy goes on. He's like, wait, I got to find the valve. And he's like yelling at the phone at the YouTube video. And he doesn't know how to pause it. Yeah.
That would be funny if Balky did that while Larry's like, I don't need YouTube. A real man doesn't have to look at directions.
Oh my gosh. My goodness.
I love the story about his dad in the house, and he's like, they never proved it was the wiring.
Oh my gosh. Larry just like lives in this fantasy world. Otherwise,
it's solid, man. It's a solid,
it's solid.
Perfect,
Nothing else would change.
Another pretty perfect episode. In fact, a lot of our listeners think this is probably one of the best episodes too. Let's get into some shout outs, Sophia.
Okay, so we have there are a lot of comments again on this episode. We like to pick and choose some of our favorites here. Cousin Lauren Miller, when I nod my head, you hit it. She says this is in my top 5 episodes and literally cry laughing every time I watch it. Absolutely. You hit it. Cousin Maria Khalaf, that was one of the funniest episodes that I've ever watched. Even my father, who is also a member of our Facebook group,
David,
even my father said that he doesn't think that Tim Allen from Home Improvement would make a bigger mess than that.
That is a fantastic reference because that was the best gag on Home Improvement is the mess Tim would make all the time.
And I'm sure they had a plumbing episode on
and
that
he was, again, he was like the macho tool guy. He thought he knew how to fix everything. It's a great call out. Cousin Evelyn says, I vividly remember watching this episode with my father when it aired. When Bronson Pinchot sat on the toilet, my dad absolutely lost it. He turned beet red from laughing so hard. And to this day, he reminds me of when Balky sat on the toilet.
That is amazing.
Memory. That's amazing.
That is amazing.
This is what's great about the show is when people, they comment with their childhood memories with their parents. Like, I love that.
Then we have cousin Sabi Ravi. Sabi rhymes with maybe. Thanks for that tip. Who writes, this is one of my all-time favorite episodes. In fact, I used this episode to introduce my 10-year-old godson to this show several years ago. He laughed throughout and quickly became a fan as well. I would rate Bronson and Mark's performances in this episode right up there with some of the best comedic partnerships ever. High praise,
absolutely.
And I 100% agree. Thank you, Cousin Sabi.
You think about your Laurel and Hardy's, your Fred and or Lucy and Ethel, your Abbott Costello. These two are so good.
Yep.
Cousin Pam comments, gee, sexist much, Larry?
Exactly.
Unfortunately, this was very much a thing in the 80s. Yeah, it was. It's of its time. She also says, the boys had to completely remodel that bathroom floor to ceiling, wall to wall, cabinets and fixtures in one day. The curtains seem to have somehow escaped. Their skills defy all rules of my perception. Am I even a person? LOL. She says.
This is a very good point because they blundered the simple shower head thing over 24 hours and made holes in the wall, but they fixed it all, everything else up.
Did they fix it really?
But they covered it up.
So I imagine all the tiles immediately just after an hour, they all just fell off the wall and everything just collapsed and everything popped. So they tried to remodel. It was not a successful remodel.
How did they even dry up that room?
I don't know. How do you dry up that sofa? It's drenched. Yeah. You need a new sofa.
All right, we have Cousin John piping in. John Adam from Colorado, I believe. Yes.
Yep.
who asks, Larry put on the tie to work in the shower?
That's a good question.
That is a really good point, because in the first scene, he's asking which tie, and then he puts it on, and then he goes to work
He's
in the shower.
I'll put on this tie, now I'll fix the shower.
I don't know, maybe like went to work before that and then came back.
Okay, maybe. Yeah.
And then Cousin John also writes, now I wonder why the girls had Larry call the plumber. In the time it took to explain it to the guys, they could have done it themselves.
Clearly, it unscrews off and then you screw it back on.
Because Cousin John comedy.
No, but there's some blue tape. You need to get this tape. It's
no.
important.
He's talking about in the time it took to tell Larry, like, you need to call him and let him in. They could have just gone to the phone and called the plumber. Because Larry calls the plumber right after they leave. They could have just called the plumber before they left and said, come at this time, settle out a time.
Well.
But I guess Larry had to confirm the time that he was going to be available. Yeah, they couldn't have. No, anyway. Good point, though, John. Good point. But the answer is always because comedy. They need to set up the premise, so you have to get there. And then Cousin John also writes, a fun little episode. I wonder if it could have been moved elsewhere in the season, replace the water with Balky's special cream filling, and there's a lot of overlap with the previous episode.
We just discussed why. Yes. These things are aired out of order, and they're on a different order on Hulu, basically.
And he writes, no comedy team is complete until there's some home repair disaster.
Of course.
This pair ranks right up there with the greats.
Speaking of the greats, Cousin Evelyn and John kind of had a little back and forth, and they mentioned there was a Cosby show that had a bathroom repair scene.
Yep.
Did Lucy and Ethel have one? Laverne and Shirley?
I don't imagine Lucy and Ethel would be changing. I don't know.
Maybe there was
Laverne
something.
and Shirley, maybe.
Yeah.
Laverne and Shirley definitely had the learn to drive with grocery items.
Right. That was the same setup. And then Cousin Evelyn says, I was going back to the Three Stooges, Abbott and Costello, Laurel and Hardy. I know the Three Stooges definitely had plumbing sketches where they were like plumbers because they would hit each other on the head with wrenches.
They would be hired as plumbers.
But they were always assaulting each other with concussive wrenches and stuff.
Yeah. So again, one of these classic sitcom premises with the Perfect Strangers flavor on it.
It's all about how you do it. Yes. And it's got Perfect Strangers. It's got Meepos all flavor sprinkled on top.
And Imran, this week we also have a shout out for us.
Whoa.
Somebody shouted us out. One of our listeners.
Stop yelling at me. Oh, never mind. Sorry. You mean something else.
Not shouting at us.
Oh, I gotcha.
Shouting us out, like giving us props, giving us a shout out. This is Cousin Evelyn Behar, and this was regarding our last week's episode about the Baby Bopkas.
Just desserts. Cousin Evelyn writes, I listened to the podcast early this morning. You guys did a great, in all caps, great job of describing the Bibi Bopka dance, the Bibi Bopka ditty. I was thinking, how are these two going to describe this thing? But wow. So I guess we did well. Thank you.
We're good with words sometimes. Thank you, Evelyn Behar. And she even suggests that we should let visually impaired people know about the podcast. She writes, you guys totally bring what is a very visual show to life without the listener ever having had to watch it. Well done.
You know, this is a crazy unintentional thing that happened because as I think both of us, as we go through this, we're always like, why are we talking about something everybody can watch, right? It's kind of silly. But how can we describe it in a way that's entertaining and descriptive and still fun and you still get to be funny?
And to be honest, I wonder all the time. I'm like, is there any point to this where people can just go and watch the episode? But we have a fun time and it's like a little challenge for us to like figure out how to describe these very visual gags.
And we never think we're doing a good job, but it's great to hear, Cousin Evelyn, that
thank you.
That it is working. Now, I love that other comment, getting in to the visually impaired people, letting them know it's just a matter of finding that community and getting the eyeballs on the show.
If anyone wants to help us get that going,
if you know
let us know.
If there's like a Facebook group or some kind of
where
place
can we
to
promote
suggest
this
things,
for
I imagine there's got to be a podcast.
Visually impaired
podcast for visually impaired people has got to be
lovers of 80s sitcoms.
Yeah. And now, as we move forward, like I kind of will always have that in the back of my mind when I'm trying to write these notes. Like, how can you describe this? Yeah. And then with Rainey's addition of describing the vests and the look.
Right.
But great comment. Thank you so much, Cousin Evelyn.
Evelyn.
It's so nice.
All right. So now we have had a couple of very humorous, very lovely, joyful episodes in a row with lots of funny physical gags. Next week.
Now we got to get to a bummer.
Next week. Join us again next week. There's still good lines. There's still good comedy. It's a bit of a heavy topic.
Yes, it is.
Balky deals with some loss and some grief. And join us next week to see how that goes.
Yeah, it's not quite as physically hilarious as these last two episodes, but it's still
But it does
fun.
Involve a cow.
Yes, absolutely.
The so there are some ridiculous
funny.
Moments.
Yes.
Yes, cows are funny.
All right, listener, that's it. In the meantime, make sure to visit our website, danceofjoypod.com. There you will find all the links, how to connect on social media, how to get in touch with us, how to leave us. You can leave us a rating right there on the website, and we'll feature it on the bottom of the website. You can leave us a voice message. There's a little microphone icon at the bottom, or you can send us an email, danceofjoypod@gmail.com. Always, we'd love to hear from you. But the most important thing, sister, that the listeners should do is what?
Always turn the stove off before you leave the apartment.
That's a good one. Or to quote the Maposian Sheep Herders Code, never let them see you sweat. It's very important. But the most important thing, of course, listener, share the show with a friend. Share it with a visually impaired friend who loves the 80s, if you know one.
Yes.
We'd love to get to know this community and see how we can help them and how we can spread Perfect Strangers joy to more people.
And now we are so happy.
Now we are so happy we do the dance of joy! Hey, hey, hey!